Back in Zen, dude.
Hey, I actually see your stream for a change.
Yeah, I decided to start doing this again, and hopefully it looks good. If it doesn't, let me know. I don't think it will hurt the. It won't hurt the resources. I don't think. I don't think. We're back. Black with more back in black. Mesa,
It's like you're
specifically.
back in blue and some
Yeah.
aquamarine, whatever that is.
Yeah. Okay, so now that we're back, the question is, what do we want to talk about first? We got a lot of different interesting topics. I'd
Nothing
like to
has
talk.
happened, right? Nothing. Most boring month ever.
So I think I actually had a I know what I want to talk about first. So the last thing we spoke about when we spoke a week ago was we spoke specifically about Iran. The last question you got was if you could talk to Donald Trump and give him one and say whatever you wanted to him about Iran, what would it be? And then you said arm the protesters, and then so I figured that on that note we should just pick it up with that note and just go, all right. So what's the latest on Iran from your view, from your perspective?
You know, the regime is getting more and more brutal. They've been sending troops to hospitals to just murder any wounded protesters. And, you know, everybody they kill is somebody's relative, somebody's friend. So it's just going to make it worse and worse for them. But what's really got to happen is that, the protesters aren't armed. Nobody's really willing to give them the arms that they need to fight back. So it's going to take enough people in the police and the Iranian military are going to have to, defect, basically. And unfortunately, that probably means that there's going to have to be some more bloodshed before that happens. Because unfortunately, until it's personal with them, whether it's Iran or the U.S. or whatever, these thugs are quite happy to, beat people up and get paid for it until it happens to somebody they care about, right? A cousin, a sibling, a parent, a child. And eventually that will happen. But yeah, the protesters, I feel really bad for them. They need to be able to fight back. So I hope they focus on that. I do know that the Kurds in Iraq tried to cross the border and help arm them, help fight. Sounds like it didn't go so well, but who knows? There's a lot of propaganda, more propaganda than facts coming out of the region. So I have a lot of doubt with anything you read. Even, in this day of AI, you can't even believe what you see entirely.
That is true. That is kind of maddening. So, what are people...
and that's changed a lot in just a few years. It was really, there was, at the beginning of Russia's invasion in Ukraine, you could believe most stuff because it was, people were recording it on their cell phones and uploading the videos, but now pretty quickly.
Looks like we crashed. Cool. Are you still there, David?
I lost your stream, though.
That's fine. I can get you back. Were you enjoying it, or?
It was helping me pace what I'm saying. Yeah, it's good to know what you're doing while I talk.
So hard that I crashed the game. Hey, Nerdy Neat, nice to see you again.
Well, then I've got to talk more. Yeah, so...
No, we're back up. We're back up.
Iran's really tragic. There were some fears this week that the U.S. might start bombing Iran, or that Israel might. But I guess Israel and Iran have negotiated through Russia that they're both going to stay out of this. I think overall that's really a good thing, because I think Israel attacking Iran, that would kind of... unless they're really carefully going after the regime, but it could also be used to discredit much of the Islamic world. So it's really best that they just stay out of it. Even though, for Israel, it would be better also if the Ayatollah's regime was gone. There's not a lot of good they can do by wading into this. The people of Iran, they've really got to end this. So the other concern I have, and I saw Trump start to lean this way, is that he might want to put the Shah back in power. Because the descendant of the Shah lives here in the U.S. He has a fair number of American supporters, but I don't see any real support for the Shah inside Iran. And it would be wrong for us to help impose, a new foreign dictator. Not to mention, there's a really bad history there that we don't want to revisit. So it's really up to the people of Iran. They need to decide for themselves their future. And unfortunately, they're going to have to pay a really awful price to get there.
Wasn't what do you think was one of the big motivators? Because now this is interesting because we're really going back to one of my original topics that we actually discussed earlier, which is that I said to you as we were ending the stream that I was concerned that Netanyahu was trying to turn Israel away from America because he wants to be friends with Russia. He wants to be in that geopolitical quadrant because Russia will let him get away with anything. And so now I'm feeling like now hearing what you've had to say here, I'm now a little bit even more. I'm even more wondering if I was correct and really on top. Did Russia negotiate Israel to stay out? Is that part of that? Is there what's going on with that?
Yeah, it's really odd that Netanyahu went to Russia to communicate with Iran. I mean, not because it isn't easy. I mean, Russia is and Iran, they're close allies. But that's a very, awkward alliance for Israel to be a part of. And it's not really Israel. It's the Netanyahu administration. But yes, he is very much getting better and better ties with Putin. And Netanyahu, he grew up in the U.S. I think he had dual citizenship for a long while. So he has American ties himself, but yeah, he's definitely getting closer and closer with Russia. Which honestly, if I was Israeli, I would find that to be very bad news. You do not want to be aligned with autocratic Russia. You want to be aligned with the West, with Europe, with America. As difficult as it may be sometimes to be aligned with Europe, Russia's no friend of Israel or the Jews. They spread, the worst of anti-Semitism around the world as part of their crazy propaganda. And yeah, that would mean bad things for the people of Israel because Putin will want to see Israel's democracy undone. And for the people of Palestine, it's even worse news. Russia has very much been a supporter. But if Putin switches his support to Israel, then he's got no use for the Palestinians. And it'll just be total bloodshed because Putin wholly endorses actual genocide. Not what certain protesters think what is going on there now, but like what is going on in Ukraine, where he is completely leveling cities and killing every last person, with the rape and kidnapping squads sent in. He would want.
I was gonna say I was told that they're strapping I don't know if this is true, but I read somewhere that they're strapping African migrants, they're come here for a better life, and they're strapping these people with suicide vests or something. Have you heard that?
Yeah. So what's
real?
going on is, maybe people remember the old Wagner Corps, right?
Yeah.
And they had an interesting moment where they made a run on Moscow, and he could have killed Putin, but Putin captured his family, Prigozhin's wife and son, held them hostage, ended up killing Prigozhin, blowing up the entire plane with the Wagner leadership that was on it. And Wagner became Africa Corps. It's renamed, rebranded, and they're not allowed to operate in Russia or Ukraine anymore. And it's run, whether in reality or just as a figurehead, by Prigozhin's son. So if you go after Putin, he won't forgive you, but he will let your family live. And what they're doing, particularly in South Africa, is recruiting people for the war, mostly under false pretenses. Tell them if they go to Russia, they can have a job, or maybe they'll just help in military logistics. But the reality is, as soon as they're there, they're a suicide soldier in the front line. Yeah, they've been strapping anti-tank landmines to them and just telling them, like, you got to run or we're going to shoot you, right? So that's it. Yeah, it's brutal, it's awful, and it's not even working for them. If anybody's watching, like these last couple weeks, we're getting even higher and higher casualty rates on the Russian side, with them not increasing their rate of territory gain. The new warfare, the drone warfare, it's just absolutely brutal. And these human wave tactics, well, the drone doesn't care. You got a land-based machine gun drone, and it just, they're just mowing people down.
Jeez Louise, that's really it's messed up to watch or to hear about. Didn't think.
Yeah, no,
that's pretty low even for Putin, honestly. Or is it? I'd imagine.
No, I don't think we've seen bottom yet. You think it's low now? I think it's still going to get lower because he's desperate. And what he's doing right now is also absolutely brutal. I don't think most people realize how much Ukrainians are suffering right now, because he's done a whole bunch of attacks against their electrical grid. And so, millions of people are in Ukraine without power, without heat, because there's just not enough electricity to go around. And we switched to Ukraine. Ukraine has to supply power to, the air defense grid, to the military, to keep wars from happening. So the people are just enduring horrible situations, but, there's nothing else to be done. And Putin doesn't care. It's even happening to his own people. This is the first winter out of 4 of them that Israel has struck back at Ukraine. Russia's electrical power. And wow. Yes, Ukraine has struck back at Russia's electrical and heating systems. And so Russia's actually looking at evacuating basically a state, the Oblast of Belgorod, which is just north of Ukraine. It's not even one of the colder regions. It's just bordering Ukraine because they've hit the electrical grid. Russian cities also have this weird Soviet central heating system. And they were already in bad condition because so many infrastructure workers have been conscripted. And Ukraine hits them, and that's it. They got nobody to fix them. So it's going to be a cold, very cold winter for a lot of Russians as well. And if you know the history of warfare in the region, winter kills a lot of people.
Yeah. The Russian winter. Undefeated, yeah. I believe.
Russian winter is notorious for killing more enemy soldiers, whether during World War II or the Napoleonic Wars, than invading armies do. And both sides are weaponizing it.
Adolf found that out the hard way, huh?
Yeah. Russians are going to learn that 2 can play at that game. Ukraine's been holding back, but and that was Biden, really, who didn't want to see Russians freeze, even while Ukrainians were freezing. and kind of strings attached. And now with Trump just giving the minimal, if that, minimal support required by Congress, Hegseth has even been redirecting some of that. So that people realize not all the aid is discretionary by Congress, right?
Yes.
So
Someone in the chat is saying that Zelensky locking down the border. He said, number one reason Ukrainians are suffering is because of the closed border. Imagine being trapped there by the regime. Has Zelensky been, like, limiting movement?
So since the beginning, it's been limited for adult men. And actually this year, they just lightened it because it used to be any men over 18. And this year they decided to lift that. And I think it's men up to age 23 because the draft for Ukraine still starts at age 25, right? So up
Starts at
until
25?
25.
Or goes
Yeah,
until
it's 25.
So 18-year-olds
Which
don't get
is-
drafted?
Yeah, until 25. At 18, you can voluntarily enlist, but you will not get drafted until you're 25. Which
What's the rationale for that?
they don't want to deplete their young people, right? They also want their young people to be educated, which is why they decided they need to let them leave the country because they can't really easily get a university education so much anymore, since a lot of the professors are in the war. So they want them to be educated, right? This is a big difference. Ukraine wants an educated military. I've got some critiques because not all Ukraine's generals are on board with the modern drone warfare. There's some that have still been kind of wasting lives of their own people. But overall, much better, particularly with the use of the very large drone corps. Right, so this is doing a lot to save the lives of Ukrainians because the drones in the front of combat, you're not dying. Ukraine, let's not pretend that no drone operators aren't dying. They're still vulnerable. They still get killed, but much, much less rate than Russian casualties. I hear a lot of this. There's a lot of Russian propaganda, and it's targeted at Ukrainians, that Ukraine is running out of manpower. But they're not. They're absolutely not. And I know the argument is, oh, well, they've only got so many people in the military. If they have manpower, then they just throw millions of men and everybody would be in the military. But that doesn't work. Right? You can't have all the men in the military because you've got to have people driving them to the front line. You've got to have people building the weapons. You've got to have people building the ammunition. You got to have people delivering it. You got to have people doing the work for the taxes that funds all that, right? You still got to have a wartime economy. Zelensky said that they need, 6 workers for every person in the military, right? And I actually think that that's low. I'd actually be shocked if the number was that low, because for the U.S. it's 10 to 1, right? Even in wartime, we've got to have 10 workers for every soldier, right? And of those soldiers, we got to have 10 of them in a support position for the person who's on the front line. So you can't just put every man on the front line. Doesn't work like that.
Imagine hating Zelensky regime to your guts and trying to ICE conscript you into a war with 100% KIA rate. Hating Zelensky regime.
Sorry.
I think
Can you repeat that again?
Someone wrote, imagine hating Zelensky regime to your guts and it trying to ICE conscript you into a war with 100% KIA rates. This guy, I think he's not a big fan of Zelensky. I'd like to hear, Nerdy, if you had if you were president of Ukraine, your suggestion. But It's, I'm assuming you're not a big fan of Zelensky.
Of Zelensky either, but Ukraine's on the right side of this war, right? Doesn't mean I have to agree with everything that their president says or does. But Ukraine is the defender, and they are really the front line of democracy in the world right now. Because that's what's going on here. And it's not just Ukraine. You've got Russia and China, who are the big two autocrat leaders, and they are waging a hybrid war on the entire world. In Ukraine, it's a kinetic war. And a few other places, we've got not Russia and China involved per se, but there are very active hot wars with forces going on, right? and Trump's making peace between all of them. Armenia and Azerbaijan, Cambodia and Thailand, India and Pakistan. There are wars going on all over, fighting going on all over. But the point is that China and Russia, they've really decided that they want to get rid of democracies. So in all these countries, they're doing their best to oppose and weaken democracies, including here in the United States, right? Where Russia funds extremists on all sides in order to weaken democratic institutions. So, and yeah, you don't have to like Zelensky, but we very much need him to win that war.
Need Ukraine to do so for sure.
Yep. I mean, it can absolutely be, a Winston Churchill thing. Winston Churchill was the guy who was brought in because they knew World War II was imminent. He won the war, and the Brits, they removed him from office. They had an election, and even though Churchill was popular, he was popular as a wartime president, not as a prime minister of UK. Man, my mouth is going faster than my brain right now. Maybe it's seeing this quick little action here in front of the screen.
I can stop if it helps, but...
No, don't. Just feed me more comments.
Okay.
I'm actually, I'm really impressed that Ukraine has kept the draft age up at 25. They're letting young men have their lives. They're not throwing them away as disposable. They're keeping a mind towards the future. They know that they need men to keep the society going, right?
So we actually have a critic here. So Ukraine has nothing to do with democracy. It's a ruthless dictatorship, literally without elections and with closed borders and with men being kidnapped off the streets every day by the thousands.
Well, we've got our local Russian propagandist here. Yeah, Zelensky, he's in one term. Ukraine has had elections. In fact, they so far have yet to ever re-elect a president. They have successful elections all the time. They even almost had a successful impeachment, which is what upsets a lot of the Russians because, they had that whole Maidan thing and they were going to have their president impeached, except he fled to Russia. And Russia attacked, and then Ukraine had elections, and then they had more elections. And it's funny because, a lot of the big Russian propagandists, they were all behind Zelensky at the time. They wanted to get rid of the incumbent who had been seriously arming Ukraine and modernizing its military. Sorry, I'm talking so fast that I'm now forgetting all the names of Ukraine's prior presidents. Yeah, Yanukovych. He was the one who was, wasn't removed, almost removed. There was going to be an impeachment, but he decided to flee, which I think is a pretty good sign of how that impeachment would have gone, and that he knew he was guilty.
The last election
I
happened
mean,
in
if there's going to
2019.
be an impeachment of Trump, and he suddenly flees to Russia, then you can be pretty sure that he knew it wasn't going to go well for him, right? Or any other president. You don't flee to the enemy country unless you know it's really, really bad for you.
That
But they
commenter
had
wrote,
Poroshenko.
last commenter wrote, last election happened in 2019. So I know previously you've spoken about why elections have not occurred recently. But
Yeah,
it bears
so
repeating.
under Ukrainian constitution, and not just the Ukrainian constitution, but actually most of Europe, they don't have elections under an invasion after martial law is declared. The reason for that is because during World War II, right, the Nazis occupied places and then had elections. And of course, if only certain people voted, if they voted wrong, they got killed. And so, or the Nazis just stuffed ballots. All of things which Russia is doing in occupied territories. So that they could have, the famous Vichy government in France and other places. But they didn't just do it in France. Romania, Ukraine, they installed their puppets all over. So European countries like Ukraine that had this happen, they don't have elections when they're invaded and under martial law until the martial law is lifted. Now, there's been a discussion that if they had a ceasefire, that they could potentially have elections again. But until that happens, that's the way it is. Same thing happened with the UK during World War II, right? There were no elections. There should have been elections, but they were postponed. The U.S. has not had to face this. We don't have this in our Constitution because, the last time we were really faced with the dilemma was the American Civil War, which was a full century and a half ago, right? And we didn't really have to deal with it so much. The remaining states, the North, were not under Southern occupation. So, yeah, it's a problem we've never really had to deal with. How do you have a fair election when, say, 20% of your population can't vote because they're captive by the enemy? And then another 10% of your population, they're out of the country, right? So does any election really represent the will of the citizenry? Anyone can question its legitimacy. And absolutely, Putin's propaganda, no matter the outcome, would say it's illegitimate because they don't want anyone democratically elected. They want to put their own puppets in place.
He's asking what the exact article of Ukraine's constitution that says this is. I obviously we're not going to do that kind of Google searching, but
yeah,
unless you have an argument,
free Google search.
yeah. If you have if you have the exact wording that says it's not the case, we'll go over it. I haven't heard that claim though. The other thing I'd imagine that you didn't speak about, and as liberals, I'm curious how you would resolve these kind of things, is that when you're trying to hold elections during wartime, it probably gets really tricky because your opponent can just bomb the areas of let's just say hypothetically we're at war with Mexico and Mexico wants the Republicans to win. They just have to start bombing the hell out of San Francisco and New York and Pittsburgh or whatever, and then suddenly the side they want will win. And so how do we as liberals how do we handle that kind of those arguments? Because I don't really like the idea of delaying elections, but I can understand that there are
and of course, and you know what, I think the thing is that there isn't just one easy answer. We have to let people decide for themselves. This is what Ukraine's constitution says, and this is what Ukraine's constitution has said since they became an independent country. Right, so it's up to the Ukrainian people to modify that if they want to. It is not up to criticism from, aren't helping them in their war, especially. But even if we are, it's still up to them.
Okay.
If Ukraine decides to have wartime elections, I support that. If they decide to stick with their constitution and not have wartime elections, I support that. Because they're the ones under threat, and ultimately, they're the ones who have to pay for it with their lives and their freedom. And so I cannot make any demands on them of that.
All right. Anything else going on the Ukrainian front line worth exploring?
Yeah, obviously the whole thing with Iran, that's hurting Russia. The Venezuela thing, that's kind of hurting Russia. So we can really expect to kind of see them lean more on the African countries. People don't realize how much Russia has really dug into Africa, and they de facto control several governments there. Several of the most brutal governments. So Sudan, Mali, Sierra Leone, Central African Republic, Russian mercenaries operate freely and, are a threat to any leaders who don't do as Russia wants. So, Africa is not a place that Americans really think about much.
No, definitely not. So, now that we're done with that, I'm curious. I want to switch topics just a bit. Then where's the referendum? I don't know what referendum you're talking about, nerdy. Hey, Caius, if you want to come and join us, feel free to just raise your hand. There's a request to speak. Or if you want to chill in the audience, no pressure either way. So now we can move on to the next topic. So I've been bothering you. So I'm gonna leak some DMs here. I'm not really, but we were having this discussion where I wanted to write for Israel. I wrote sort of the post Gaza, okay, Hamas is removed. This is what a potential two-state solution looks like. I wrote a big thing about why I think the one-state solution is unfeasible, but I wrote about the two-state solution a bit. And your response, it's called the Federation, it incorporates some elements of the one-state solution while also maintaining the two-state solution sort of form or core. And your response, I'm paraphrasing, was, this doesn't fit on a fortune cookie. And you basically said it was very long. And so, I don't know, I wanted some more detailed thoughts if you wouldn't mind handing them or giving them.
Sure. Well, first of all, this Oslo peace process is older than I am, and I'm not a fresh recruit anymore. So the first thing I think we have to say is that, the current situation has absolutely failed over there. And I think right now it's getting worse.
Thanks
I would say it's getting worse.
I appreciate the questions, nerdy. I just didn't understand your comment on the referendum. I just didn't know what that was referencing. Thanks for joining us.
I think it's getting worse for Israelis, and I think it's getting worse for Palestinians, honestly, because the violence is getting worse, for both sides. The October 7th incident was the worst mass murder of Jews since the Holocaust, right? That's not getting better. That's not a peace process. That's not progressing towards peace. If you're a Palestinian, you're not becoming more prosperous. You're not becoming more free. Lots of them are dying. So, nothing's getting better for them either. And I really think the first thing that has to happen, and there seems to be no will to do it, is to admit that the existing peace process framework has failed, right? Just admit that it's failed. Because it has. It should not take a human lifespan for a real peace process to work. And we've got to get there. It doesn't even really matter is a two-state solution, a one-state solution, a no-state solution, a three-state solution. What matters is that we get to that peace, right? And right now, because we're so stuck to this old failed system, nobody's really accepting any proposals. And I think the first thing that has to happen is we just have to admit, look, Oslo failed. We don't even need to assign blame. We need to admit that it failed, and we need to start getting solutions to what are we going to do to make this work. And I think the first obvious thing is that Hamas has to go, right? Hamas has no interest in peace whatsoever. Never have. Their whole charter and existence is to use the Palestinians in a war against the Jews. That's why they exist. They're not there to really help the Palestinian people. They do sometimes. That's how they got into power, was doing works of charity and stuff. That's just a small portion on the side of their military wing. And a lot of their charity involves stealing aid and then redistributing it after they've stolen some for themselves to, the rest. It's not real charity. Real charity is when you give people from your own money, right? Not when you steal from someone else.
Right.
So Hamas has to go, but not just Hamas. Honestly, I think the way that this war is being waged, the Netanyahu administration has to go. And not even just because of this war, but the way that he's messing around in Syria, the way that he's being buddy-buddy with Putin. There's no peaceful future for Israelis in any of this. Honestly, I feel so bad for the people of Israel and the people of Syria because there is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity now for Syria and Israel to be at peace with each other, and Netanyahu is squandering it, honestly. I am sympathetic, to the claims that they got to protect the Druze population in Syria. That politically plays really well with the Druze population of Israel. But you're not really helping by creating long-term instability, right? There's an opportunity here with this new government. They should be working with them, right? And instead, he's working with Russia to keep the Russian military bases in Syria and to, help Russia's agenda in Syria, which is against a democratic Syrian government. Yes, I'm fully aware of the Islamist backgrounds of their leaders, but the background doesn't really matter. Honestly, if you want to complain about backgrounds, we can complain about the backgrounds of some of Israel's founders, right? Because some of their most violent organizations, they were part of the government, right? But they supported the democracy, they supported the transition, and they made it. So you have to give them a chance. If those who are terrorists, who are soldiers, are willing to lay down their weapons and be a part of the peace, then you should give them a chance to do so. This claim that, it was the Islamists got rid of the violent secular government. I mean, look, the Assad government was secular, but they were no friends to Israel or to peaceful people anywhere.
Yeah.
It was a complete thugocracy. And, so give them a chance. They say they want to do it. They say they want to bring about democracy in Syria. They deserve the chance. And unfortunately, if it fails, we all may get something much, much worse in Syria. So, again, like what happened with Iran, the USA opposed a democratic revolution in Iran because we were backing the Shah. And we succeeded there, and instead, then we got the Islamic Revolution, the current government led by the Ayatollah in Iran, and that's worse. So keep in mind that even if you don't like what's there now, things getting worse is often an option. Okay, I have to take my break here now.
Okay.
So explain to people what you're playing and what you're doing right now.
Okay.
And I'll be back in 5 minutes or so.
See you then. Why is it doing? It's so weird. The system keeps making these remarks. Basically, the idea of the solution that I had proposed for the peace process was to basically create a tiny EU between the state of Israel and the state of Palestine. What this would look like, essentially, in short, was, and this is like tons of different facts. Like, I'm giving you like the cliff notes. This gets far more complex than what I'm giving you. We'll keep it high level. This would allow reasonable amounts of immigration between Israelis and Palestinians, who will be able to go to. They'll be able to live in one another's territories, but they won't be citizens of one another's territory. You would also have like a joint administrative body that would be responsible for the sort of security of the region. So everybody's security would be based on this confederate unit similar to the EU, who would be and Jerusalem could also theoretically be controlled by these people. I say theoretically because everyone is very sensitive about that. Like, everybody wants to be sort of the sole owner of Jerusalem, so don't pretend that it's going to work, or that's going to be easy. But I think it provides a pathway to, like, a vision. The most important thing that the plan that I propose does is that it also makes very clear that the most important thing that I would say that it does is that it removes incentives for further conflict, where we would have to go up to the Palestinians and tell them that the right of return no longer exists, and we'd have to put like Israeli settlement construction under like very extreme levels of scrutiny and probably sanctions of some sort. And by doing that, the hope, the intention is that right now, my personal belief of what extends the conflict, why there's no peace, can be summed up as just basically that both sides believe that, if we continue to fight, then in 100 years from now, we will be victorious. That, like, we will chase the Israelis from the land, or we will cleanse the land of the Palestinians, whichever side you fall on. Like, the extremists have the belief that the other side's going to go away in one form or another, in one way or another. And so the most important thing that we can do as sort of members of the international community is to find ways to say, no, that's not the case. They're not going to go away, even if you want them to. They're here forever. The land has to be shared, etc. Obviously, this is not an easy thing, but the idea of the solution that I had was basically to modify it for some, more, I don't know if I want to say, I guess I'll say the word hardline Israeli, hardline Palestinian demands to be met, where under certain circumstances, like I said, Palestinians could live in Israel, Israelis could live in Palestine, so everybody could theoretically find some balance. But it will be tricky because, like I said, everybody is of this belief that if they just hold out, that like what we have today, whether it's, the U.S.'s support for America, or it is, Israel's current existence, that everything in the world is temporary, and that if they just wait long enough, eventually. This is driving me nuts that the damn thing keeps making. I can't disable it because that's John's. I'm gonna get fucking demolished here. That's John's thing, but the essential idea is that I'm getting like dogpiled here. Where was I? The essential idea.
I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I explained it. It's still obviously quite the audacious goal. The ever audacious goal of peace in the Middle East. But here, we're about peace. We're about liberalism, but I guess they go hand in hand. So when you say that we need to recognize like the current paradigm has not worked, what does that include, and what is that like? What's like the first steps? Like it's easy. I think everyone already agrees it doesn't work. Like
No, they don't. The most important people, like American leaders, European leaders, they don't recognize that it hasn't worked, right? Because they keep trying to it. They keep trying to work on these old agreements, like a big one, right? So there's supposed to be a development freeze in the disputed territories, the West Bank and Gaza, right? So Palestinians aren't supposed to build, and the Israeli settlements aren't supposed to build. Okay, and that was fine when it was a short-term agreement, but we're decades later. Populations grow, right? So, they have to build, and so Israelis bulldoze the illegal Palestinian settlements. I hate that we even call them settlements, but that's propaganda in play. These are cities. These are villages. The settlement is borrowed colonial language to try and make it seem improper, but Jews and Arabs are native to the region. This is not settlement. This is growing population. This is no more a settlement than when you move to the city to go to college and then go and get a job in the country and move out there, right? It's the same thing. People are looking for a place to live and a place to work. And that's what's going on. A lot of people want to live in old place. Something that, just, gets me. Some of these Israeli soldiers in Gaza were born in Gaza, right? Because there used to be Jewish settlements there, and they were all removed. So they're not going to some strange place. They're invading the home where they grew up. So, and this is something, the polarization on the both sides wants to denies any legitimacy to Jews in the Middle East or Palestinians in disputed territories. And we need to get over that and move forward, right? Another thing that we need to move forward on are the populations in Lebanon and Syria who live in camps, who are called Palestinians. They've never lived anywhere else, right? Their great-grandparent left in 1948 because they were told to by the Mufti of Jerusalem, and they've never gone back. And their descendants are not Palestinians. They've lived their entire lives in Syria. So, they need to have rights and protections of the governments of the region.
1 second, guys. Hold on, Dave. This thing that keeps like pinging and saying that there's like that we're streaming is like actually like annoying me. I need to disable it. I need to see if I can disable it. Okay, hold on. It's like it's already pinged like 5 times that we are like live, and it's probably annoying the shit out of everyone. Yeah, 8 times. Oh my god.
Oh yeah, 8 announcements have gone out that we're live. That's kind of odd.
Yeah, we never did this before, but do I not have access to this? Let me see. Oh, I can't remove its role. Nuts. Okay. Do we have anyone watching on Twitch? What I can do is it only pings when we're live on Twitch, and maybe if there's no one watching, so what we can just do, if you're watching and I'm not seeing you, then please just go to either Facebook, YouTube, or Kick. or X, but not that one. I'm going to turn off our stream on Twitch for right now, except it's not working. So I've turned it off on Twitch, and hopefully that's going to disable that thing, because it's only pinging about our... Okay, anyway. You still there?
Yeah. So let me get on to one thing that I think is a really big problem and a hang-up. And to do that, I'm going to have to go through a little bit of history, not a lot. In 1947, there was no Israel-Palestine. There was the British Mandate of Palestine, right? Mm-hmm. And the people who lived in the region were British. Britain pulled out. Israel declared independence, and Jordan and Egypt invaded. And in that, Israel won its independence, but there were the regions that Egypt and Jordan invaded had people in them. Those are the people that largely we call Palestinian today. And then there were some others. 1948, the Mufti played his games. He sent letters, particularly to villages where there was a Shia Muslim population. He didn't trust them. He told them to run away, and they largely did, to the north, to Lebanon and Syria, where they became refugees, never been recognized as citizens. Israel, there was a war in 1967. The regions that Egypt and Jordan had invaded became parts of Israel. But the people who lived there were not given Israeli citizenship, and they didn't have Egyptian or Jordanian citizenship, right? And this is where part of the Palestinian question came from. But now you've got two groups of people. Some people that haven't been in the area for 20 years. They left in 1948. And people who are still there, who are not citizens, right? And in the 70s, when this peace process was created, there was a right of return. Like, okay, well, all the people who left in 48, who, they don't have a country, they and their descendants, they get to come back. And Israel, of course, really objected to this because if it was a one-state situation, then all the Jews would be a minority with a hostile majority. And if it was a two-state solution, then it could be a very hostile army right on their side. But the thing is, decades more have gone by. If you have even one parent who's one of these people who left in 1948, then you are stateless. You are in Syria and Lebanon, you are not a citizen. So we have this growing population of stateless Palestinians. And they are a problem because, they're treated badly by those states. They don't have rights. They don't have protections. And yes, the people who are trampled upon like that become violent. When the only way to live is as a criminal, you become a criminal. That's not necessarily something that Israel needs to fix, right? The side that I think wants to make conflict says that these people have to be resettled somewhere in Israel or Palestine. The Palestinians who reside in the territories, they don't want this. They want this even less than the Israelis, in fact, because those people are very different from them and would create internal conflict. But it's still kind of a weapon. And I think that first thing I would say is that has to drop. If you're born in Syria, if you're born in Lebanon, then you need to be a citizen of that country. No creating stateless people. The U.S. had this problem. We created the 14th Amendment. If you're born here, and you've lived here, then you become a citizen, right? Because that's how we had people as slaves. Oh, you were born to a non-citizen, then you aren't a person, you don't have rights. And that's morally wrong. They aren't slaves in Lebanon and Syria, but they are still people without rights, without the protection of the government under which they were born into, and that's wrong. They need to be recognized and protected as citizens of the lands in which they were born. those countries really don't want them, then they need to help them immigrate, not try and force them on an enemy state. There's a former House Representative, Justin Amash. He comes from a mixed
That's
Palestinian family like that. Yep. So they immigrated to the U.S., right? And he became a U.S. citizen. Great, outstanding citizen. You don't have to agree with all of his politics, but he is a patriotic American, and also, what is it? I think, by ancestry, he's like half Palestinian, and someone would have to look it up. I think like half Syrian. I'm not sure. Right, and he has family that has been killed by the ongoing hostilities in Gaza, unfortunately, which is part of the tragedy that's going on. But yeah, so that's the first thing, and I think that really takes away most of the demographic threat. There's always been kind of, I think, a fear on the Israeli side that the Palestinians are going to multiply out of control. But we see of the Palestinians the same that we see anywhere else, and that as people become more prosperous, they choose to have fewer children voluntarily, right? Large families tends to largely be in situations of poverty and situations of death where you don't know how many are going to survive to adulthood. When you know that you're going to have adult children, people voluntarily choose not to have large families as a general rule. Right? Yes, I know that there are religious exceptions, and there are those exceptions, whether Jews, Christian, Muslim, whatever. But they are an exception. They are not the rule. So the law of averages still applies and wins out the day.
Okay. I mean, yeah, that's. I don't think you said anything that I disagree with. In fact, I think we are aligned, which is good.
Yeah. I mean, I just think with what you were doing, you're kind of skipping steps. Like, oh, I want to get to a solution. Like, okay, but nobody's listening to those solutions because they're still stuck on an old solution that never solved anything.
I agree. I'll edit that and make that more clear. So appreciate that. Okay, so in short, I'm a genius. Thank you.
And yeah, I would
take the W.
If Palestinians and Israelis can agree to a one-state, two-state, or three-state solution, I don't care what it is, I'm going to back them on it, so long as they're getting towards a peace. But this Oslo peace process has had longer than a child to prove itself and failed.
Yeah, we
multiple generations have come and gone, and
no luck.
Yeah, it failed. It needs to be kicked to the curb, and we need something new. And all of its provisions. I mean, the whole thing needs to be scrapped. If it has some good parts, and I believe it does, those need to be renegotiated into a new peace plan. But we need to start from scratch because it's not working, and clinging to it for decades more is not going to make it work.
That's fair. Okay, so last question I want to talk about, last topic I thought would be interesting, is immigration. So this has been spurred on, this has been a long thought process of mine for a while. I'm curious how you, as a liberal, sort of approach topics of coalition building and immigration. So let me start. I'm gonna get on my you've been doing most of the talking today. I'm about to eat it. You've been doing most of the talking today. I'm going to do a little bit of talking right now. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my background. I've been one of those people, as you may or may not know, I am terrible at this game. As you may or may not know, I'm a veteran of the Great Meme Wars of 2015. And being a veteran of the Great Meme Wars of 2015 means that I'm familiar back in the day when this guy named Sargon of Akkad was like the number one stream, like one of the biggest political YouTubers. Oh, fudge me, dude. on the internet. He was really big. I think he was the biggest political YouTuber at the time. And he was a liberal. And he proudly identified as a liberal, where he self-described himself as he wanted to start a new movement called the Liberalist movement, which was because he said, like, you know, socialists, it's like socialism, and, you know, communists like like communism. So we should be liberalists, like liberals. Anyway, it was a little cringe, but I liked it. I liked the energy, and it was, you know, I followed him through this movement. He has fallen, unfortunately, into post-liberalism now. It's his new movement, and he's from the United Kingdom. And
Yep, that's a key factor here. Yes.
I guess I could sum up his position as TLDR, immigration bad. I feel like is a pretty fair assessment of who he is and what he believes and why he believes it. So then there's a second guy. He's from Australia. His name is Drew Pavlo. And he has a similar kind of story where he's like a proud liberal and he supports liberalism, and he's also moved into the same sort of post-liberal thing on the basis of, like, yeah, immigration equals bad. And I've noticed that, like, this seems to be kind of a reoccurring theme in the liberal sort of, like, movement of liberalism being, like, having to confront immigration. And I'll give you two quick examples, and then I'll let you take over. Oh,
yeah. And first of all, I want to legally differentiate. There's two things. There's immigration and there's naturalization. I'm familiar with Sargon of Akkad, and really what he's fighting is naturalization. But go ahead.
I don't know if I agree with you, but I will. I want to finish with one more thing, and then we'll get into it. So I was looking into Finland, and the Finnish leadership there actually said outright that the reason that they don't have a right-wing party, like an ultra-nationalist right-wing party that so many other European countries can't seem to, like, help but, like, fall victim to, he says that the reason we don't have it is because we just realized people don't like immigration, and we just started respecting that. Even though the individual, the prime minister, was a big pro-immigration person, he didn't want to, you know, he knew that this isn't where the people are at, and he respected it. The second thought that I had was I was talking to my friend Steve, who's doing the Festival of Progressive Abundance. He's part of the organization's called YIMBY Democrats of America. Super great guy, super cool thing. And he was telling me about how we were talking about coalition building, and he said he met someone who was from a more conservative area and more conservative background. He said something along the lines of, like, abundance means deportation, so there's more for the rest of us. Which, for the record, I don't agree with. I think that's, like, the exact opposite of abundance. But independent of that, what is very clear is that in this movement, whether you want to call it, like, a liberal movement, or a, you know, anti-Trump movement, or a, you know, associated with Democrats movement, there just seems to be a really strong anti-immigration sentiment. And so my question to you in this whole long spiel that I'm doing can be summed up as I'm not asking you if, like, Project Liberals should take an anti-liberal or anti-immigration stance, because I know you're going to say no, and I also agree with you. The answer is no. But the more interesting question is, do anti-immigration, pro-deportation people, are they part of the coalition, in your view? All right, now you can go.
Yeah, I think so, with a very important exception, right? And I think it's key. The one thing we cannot tolerate, and that's what you see on the MAGA side, are those people who are anti-due process, right? They want to get rid of immigrants, and they don't care if they violate the law and the Constitution. You know, we're just going to send ICE, and we're going to smash and grab people and send them off to labor camps in other countries. It can even be a lesser form of that, right? You have to agree on the liberal side that we're going to have laws and a process, and we're going to agree to it, right? And it's going to be a compromise process. I'm not going to get all of what I want. I'm definitely more on the open borders, open immigration side, right? Not what we have. And I'm not going to get that, because we're going to come to a democratic compromise, right? That's what liberalism has to agree to. And me and Sargon of Akkad in the same liberal party, neither of us is going to get what we want. There's going to be some middle ground, and it's going to follow due process. And now, that said, I'm about as opposite Sargon of Akkad on the liberal spectrum as I think as you can be on this particular issue. Immigration and naturalization. I think that we should be really open borders, and I don't think we have to worry about what the UK has to worry about. Now, first of all, immigration and naturalization. I don't think that just anybody should become a U.S. citizen, and I do think there are some limits. But anyone who's peaceful, you want to come here and do business, we should let you. There should be easy work visas. There should be easy guest visas if you're visiting friends and family who are Americans. We got to cut through all the red tape. If you want to come here and spend your tourism dollars, that's fine too. Becoming a citizen, I don't think that I really want to, maybe cut some of the red tape, but I don't really want to make that easier and lighten the load. In fact, I might even make that a little more difficult. And I think this is where the UK has really screwed up, because they have allowed people who have no interest whatsoever in being British to become citizens. Right? People who should have been tourists. In Egypt, there's even a nickname for London where they call it Londonistan, right? Because they've taken the worst of the people. And we say that, they've taken, people like Sargon of Akkad say that they've taken too many Muslims, or I think in Britain they like to euphemize Asian because it's not politically correct to say Muslim. But it's not just that they've taken Muslims, but they've taken the most violent, aggressive members of the Muslim Brotherhood that even others don't want to be around, right? That it is definitely a problem. We need people who want to live in peace with their new neighbors. That is absolutely a requirement. So yeah, we'd keep out criminals, we'd keep out terrorists. But after that, we shouldn't have long lines at the Canadian and Mexican borders. There should be a sign pretty much at the U.S. border there that says open for business. That's my stance as a liberal. And why? I know that even a lot of people don't necessarily like that or agree with that, but they love what it gets us, what it does for us. They like cheap avocados in the grocery store coming up from Mexico. They love cheaper lumber coming down to make houses more affordable from Canada, right? We love the free flow of goods and services because we like to buy it. I've got one of those roadside taco places that opens up here in my neighborhood at night. I love it. Great food. And, I highly doubt that they're U.S. citizens. I don't know their legality or not, but they're here benefiting me, right? Now, I could make burritos or tacos at home. I don't need them to do it, but I like them to do it, and I'm willing to pay for that service. So why shouldn't I be able to, right? They're not doing harm to me, and as long as they're here not doing harm, they should be free to stay. Now, and we get a lot of fear. There's a lot of xenophobia about what people don't understand. And I will specifically say Muslims. Islam is a region that is more native to Southern Asia and North Africa, and Americans just really aren't familiar with it. And what we're not familiar with, we are afraid of. And there is some legitimate reason to be afraid. Islamic terrorism in the name of Islam is a very real thing, and it is a very real threat. But there's something like 1.5 billion Muslims in the world. They are not all violent. Those who are dangerously violent are an extreme minority overall of that 1.5 billion people. And we need professionals who are doing customer, who understand the difference. Not like Trump, where I'm just going to block people from 75 nations. Okay,
Yeah.
well, then you're blocking the minorities, religious minorities who are persecuted by those people. You're blocking the Muslims who love liberty and freedom like we do and could be spreading that culture instead of a culture of autocracy and violence and death. And we need to be promoting and protecting that. And that's really the thing. And the problem is that people don't want to learn. They just go, it's, there's some people who are different and they're scary. And yes, they're different. We need people who understand the differences, keep the scary ones away, and let in those who are peaceful and want to do business, want to be good neighbors. Right? I will, hey, let's use Israel as an example, because Israel has Muslims in the military. They have highly decorated Muslim soldiers in the Israeli Defense Forces. And if any country has a problem with Islamic terrorism, it's Israel. And yet they have Muslims who are integrated into high levels of society, right? So the thing is that they're familiar with it. They understand. They understand who wants to kill them and who doesn't. And Americans, we need professionals who are familiar, who understand who wants to kill us and who doesn't. And, go get some shawarma. It's really good.
It is really good.
Hummus as well. Oh, Lebanese baba ganoush. Wonderful. Love it. Middle Eastern food is really good. It's tasty and it's actually rather healthy for you.
Super healthy.
Much better than Donald Trump's diet of McDonald's. So,
What a bar.
yeah, learn to love it.
I do. So, you said that you want to respect due process, but
Yeah.
that, which obviously makes sense, but that means to what extent, I'm pushing this to its logical limits, and I'm asking
Yeah.
are we talking
Sure,
about are we talking about we're actually fine with ICE-esque raids, basically, as long as it follows due process?
No, well,
It's not an easy
I think
question,
ICE needs to be abolished right now because it is too far off from the process. It is just a gang and a group of thugs. If it was following a process, we wouldn't be seeing what we're seeing now. But I would agree, if the majority of Americans wanted to completely close the borders, end all immigration, then fine. I, as a liberal, would say, okay, well, that's the law now. That's what we're doing. And I would argue against it. I would say it's wrong and it's harmful to us. But, there is no fundamental right to enter a country, right? Unless you're a citizen, unless it's your home, you have some claim to it. As a non-citizen, there is no right to enter the country or become a citizen. So yeah, that's, if we want to block it, we can. But the question is, should we? Is it beneficial to us? And on that point, I say no, right? But, I agree to abide by the Democratic majority in setting fair rules for everybody. The number one thing about making rules fair, though, is that we follow them. And that's not what Donald Trump is doing right now.
No, definitely not. Definitely is not doing that.
He has thugs running loose, and he's not following laws. He's making up new executive dictates day by day, saying, I don't like the people of Mali anymore.
Basically, it's kind of crazy because he doesn't even have
Notice that other than Russia, like there's a lot of places that are just countries with black and brown people.
Yeah. It's very, yeah. Okay.
And I know Trump didn't really know anything about those 75 countries.
With 75 countries?
Yeah.
Oh, the 75 countries that he, like, restricted immigration from, it was?
He blocked visas other than, like, I think they can still do a tourist visa, but yeah, no other forms of immigration.
No workers visa. I wonder how much.
So, like,
I'm very concerned with
I don't know for sure, but I would think that would include, like, a fiance visa.
Jeez. That's just tragic and unnecessary. But cruelty's part of the fun, right? It's part of the game.
The cruelty is the point.
Yeesh. Trump is just messing things up. I don't know. I don't even know what to say.
So, in terms of coalition.
oh yeah, please continue. Sorry.
Yeah, you just have to agree that there's going to be respect for due process, respect for democracy. If your position on immigration is outvoted, then, we're going to abide by it. But we're not going to have lynchings in the street. We're not going to have thugs going and shooting citizens, right? If you're behind that, then I would say there's no place for you in the Liberal Alliance.
I had no clue that, like, I didn't think it was that bad that you were saying about what's their faces, the United Kingdom. I didn't know that, like, I saw this headline that, like, they didn't want people studying, that the UAE didn't want people studying in the UK because apparently they're too radical, and I almost, like, kind of thought that was a meme, but, like,
no,
it's kind of something that's very weird to read. Like, you almost think it's got to be like a joke.
We're like the worst Islamist terrorists in the Middle East come from London, right? They're not even homegrown.
How'd this happen?
By the UK giving a green light to the worst of the Muslim Brotherhood and just really not, not filtering who came in.
Sheesh. It's kind of crazy. I wouldn't have never imagined that. So how do you...
And it's so bad in the UK that they don't even discuss Muslims and Islam. They talk about Asian men. So they talk about Asian rape gangs, like they're not talking about Chinese guys.
Right. How do you in general, like, I feel like is your sort of stance that, like, every country should have open borders, but you kind of recognize that it's just not really going to be the case? Or do you think some countries...
not every country should have open borders because some of them are losers, but mostly those are, autocratic countries. Like communist Venezuela, communist China. Communist countries tend to have walls and closed borders because people want to escape to freedom, right?
Yeah.
And those free countries, they benefit by having more people who love and want freedom, right? And... yeah, so in that way, it tends to be kind of self-selecting. Yeah, Europe has a different situation with its neighbors than the United States does. We are blessed by having Canada and Mexico as neighbors. Right? Seriously, what are we afraid the Canadians are going to do?
They're going to be too polite.
They're going to sell us more maple syrup.
Yeah. No, you're right.
And I know there's always, throughout every generation, there's been a fear, immigrants are taking my jobs. Okay, and they might take your job, but it's not really your job. And you can get a newer, better job. Immigrants, they don't just bring labor, they bring demand, right? We can sell new things to them. And for those with skills are able to get better jobs. Yeah, Americans no longer work in the coal mines. That's not bad. I don't want to work in a coal mine. We have more scientists. We
Shut up
have
and
more
dig the
engineers.
hole.
We have people making relatively, even after you account for inflation, making far more money. We have a much better standard of living, in large part due to immigration.
Yeah.
If Britain had not opened up immigration to the colonies, we would not have become even the power that could have fought off Great Britain. It was that freedom that allowed people to come here, first of all. They practiced their religion freely, that was persecuted. They created their businesses freely, and that's all that's really needed for economic prosperity is that level of freedom.
Yeah.
I mean, I like to point to Singapore. Singapore is a tiny little country. It's not even all that free, but it's got a lot of economic freedom. And it turns out, that economic freedom and trade is really, and peace is all you need to create a lot of prosperity. They have no real amount of economic resources. You can compare a country like Russia, giant country, lots of people, lots of land, huge amounts of natural resources, no freedom, not doing wonderful things in terms of trade, impoverished, economy smaller than Italy's. And then Singapore is a huge economic success. So if those are your two choices, if you can either be Singapore or Russia and that's it, I think most all of us are going to choose Singapore.
I'd say so.
I think we can do better than Singapore, but it's first of all a pretty simple choice to make on economic freedom.
I mean, when you put it that way. Okay. So part of the coalition, that's kind of weird, but yeah, I mean, the reason I brought it up is that I've just noticed that, like, it just feels like all of these far right parties are just like, they're like two things. There's trans people and immigration. I definitely don't want to sell trans people down, and I don't want to sell immigrants down the road either, to be honest. But like, there's such
Russia.
There's just such a temptation. Yeah. Oh man. There's such a temptation to just say like, okay, you know what? No immigrants. And now what are you campaigning on now? And they'll be like, I don't know. Elon, I need more buzzwords. I need more dog whistles.
Yeah. There's in Germany they have their far right party, AfD, Alternative for Deutschland. Yeah. And they keep saying, "Oh, we're not aligned with Russia." And there was a guy, he was actually kind of a party leader, and he believed in their anti-immigration stance and there was other stuff, but he decided to go to Ukraine, and the party leadership just absolutely threw a fit, and even though that he had been a local leader, basically threw him out, and they were doing everything they could to get rid of him. And that is because that the extremism is being financed by Russia. Right, it's being backed by Russia.
Yeah, of course.
And it's Russia's way of creating chaos in these countries. They'll find whoever the craziest person is, and they don't care if they're left or right or whatever, but they got a check for them and a megaphone, and they want them to get more followers and just tear things up. Russia thrives on the chaos and the damage it does to other countries. Because they recognize that for them, the real problem, what they have no chance of beating, is Western prosperity.
Yeah.
So they're trying to convince us to destroy our own prosperity.
I fully agree, dude. This heritage, have you heard of the concept of a heritage American?
Yes, I think it's so dumb.
It is.
I absolutely am a heritage American. I'm more heritage American than these people like Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, who are, children of immigrants.
I will 100% die on the hill that heritage American was just invented by Russia to make it just that much more hostile to immigrants coming to this country.
I trace my ancestry in this country back to before the Revolutionary War, right? So that's about as heritage as you get, and it's just stupid. What really is American, and more than ever, what it really taught me to appreciate is that what really does make America great is that we are not a nationality. We're not based on an ethnicity, not based on a language. We are a country based on an idea that all people should be free and that all people are created equal, right? It's a wonderful idea, and we really need to embrace it. It is the liberal idea, and that has what led us this far to unparalleled prosperity and just good times, right? And, not just America, lots of other places have benefited from that by seeing it work and following it. And this idea of a heritage American is trying to teach us to abandon what really makes us American.
No, I fully agree. It's just a weird concept to me. Like, and it just feels like it came out of nowhere. That suddenly we care about this. Supposedly, I think it's just Russia back.
Yep. And that's the thing is that, you can become a German citizen, but you don't become German, right?
Yeah, this is a Reagan
You
story.
can be an immigrant coming from any part of the world. We'll add a hyphen to you, but you're American.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's 100% true. So it makes this.
And heck, you don't even have to come from another part of the world. We'll add a hyphen to you and still call you American.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know what that was. That was big and ugly.
What? How did that go through him? That's some bull. This is like the first actual boss fight of this whole game, ironically.
But yeah, we need to embrace that being American is an idea.
Yeah.
Because that idea is what's fundamentally under attack by MAGA. And we need to defend the idea with strength, right? With tenacity.
Oh boy. Well.
That doesn't look good. You just got thrown off the edge of the world.
Again.
Oh, and then thrown right face first into that, into your big ugly there.
Yeah. Dude.
Yeah, I was not able to provide any commentary on your gameplay before.
It's okay.
So I'll ask our viewers, should I keep commenting on Oren's gameplay, or should I just stick to the politics?
Politics is probably better.
Yeah, we're at about time here, so what comments and questions do we have?
Nothing. People are just chilling. I brought him up when I did. That guy left, I think, because he thinks we're like Ukraine shells, which I guess we kind of are, to be fair, but he was kind of mad about that. Whatever. All good.
You got any questions there in the chat? Or else I'll go back to this. It's always, it's always the people who don't complain about Russia, who complain about Ukraine not having elections. Like, they don't complain about Russia having the same ruler for 30 years. They complain about Ukraine not having an election during an invasion. Postpone it.
No, I agree. Dude, why do they spawn me right in front of it? It just tackles me. Alright, we're just gonna go ham on it. Anyway, no, ow. That just killed me. Oh, this game. Maybe if I jump over here, he won't be able to hurt me. Famous last words?
If you ever want to complain about not having legitimate elections, Russia and China are right there. I mean, China's absolutely legitimate. They just aren't having them.
What about our boys in Best Korea?
Oh yeah, they're having fun. I guess their former president is facing the death penalty.
Are they? Oh, I meant North Korea's. That's the
Oh,
mean.
in North Korea?
When you say
Yeah.
Best Korea, that means North Korea is Best Korea. Oh, I missed.
Yeah. How about the Venezuelan elections, right? They had elections twice, but people didn't vote right, so they canceled the results.
Yeah, that's some classic autocratic nonsense.
Yep.
We covered. Jesus, this thing is like smothering me. Okay, I avoided it that time. What's your favorite topic to discuss? We went over a lot of stuff.
Favorite one to discuss? I don't know.
I think it's
I,
Ukraine.
I like strategy games.
Oh, I meant like. Okay, you play Civ?
Yeah. As far as like foreign policy, I just like getting into the weeds with people whenever there's anyone who's like really interested in what makes nations work. I enjoy it. I enjoy curious people. We take, people too often just grow up and take everything for granted.
No, I agree with that.
Where does the light come from? Well, I flip a switch and that makes it happen. Where does the water come from? Well, I turn the faucet, that makes it happen. But no, there's actually systems behind all of that. Well, it's the same with everything else. We have all this mystic imagery behind governments and stuff, but the reality is it's just us. It's just people. Government itself is not a thing. It's a system. It's what we choose to do, and at any moment we can choose to do something else.
Yeah.
In the words of one of America's wisest founding fathers, Thomas Paine, we have it in our power to make the whole world over again. And once you realize that and embrace it, it's a wonderful thing. We are not, with everything that's awful that we don't like, we do not have to accept it. People have the power of change. We just have to convince others.
I like that.
And it seems like an impossible task, but it's not.
Till it's done.
We just have to be more active at it and do it more than, say, like the MAGA side, right?
Yeah. Easier said than done, but I fully agree. I think on that note, we can end it and hope that, hope we don't have anything interesting to talk about next week.
Oh, we will. It's one thing after another. But, hopefully people will suggest some topics we can prepare for, debate, or maybe how you get past this boss. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a fun topic.
Or
I
let me
thought
know if you
I was
want to watch
telling-
me play strategy games for a change. I like to play
if you want.
turn-based real-time strategy games.
I am 100% down if you want to be the gamer, and I'll ask questions or I'll read the chat. That's totally doable.
I'll be the gamer. I'll ask you questions. What's Oren's expertise?
What's my expertise? Wow. Well, I wrote that paper on Israel. I'm happy to take questions on it. Other than that, I think isn't. I don't know. Let me think about that. I don't know. I'm not. The thing is, I'm like, in comparison to who? I don't know. I have to think about the answer to that question. In the meantime, I guess we can. We'll go until I die again, which will be another 10 seconds. This guy hits me with another, bin thing, like he keeps doing. Like that. That thing, shreds my health bar. Whee!
I played the original Half-Life, but I've never played Black Mesa, so this is...
Is this guy in it? I don't know. This is probably, it's a rocket launcher. This has to be the most effective way to kill him.
It's well done. That is one big ugly.
Yeah. Alright, let's call it here. I'll load into this boss fight next Thursday, and we will continue to crush it. But until then, thank you guys. If you have discussions or you want to come on stream, just let me know. Questions, topics. We're excited. But thanks for joining us.